It's the Kyle Hyman Show on Redeemer Radio.
This is Kyle Hyman, and joining us is Cindy Black, our executive director here at Redeemer Radio for Theology of the Body Thursday. Thanks for being here, Cindy.
Good morning.
Good morning. Feminine genius.
Yes.
Do you have any idea where this term or label originated? Was that Pope John Paul II?
Yes.
Okay.
As far as I know.
Yeah.
I don't know if he heard it somewhere else first, but yeah, he's the one who really expanded on it in his letter to women and in looking at the differences between males and females. So while we're going to talk about the feminine genius today, this is in no way like trying to be male bashing.
This isn't the masculine idiotics.
Right. No.
Idiocracy?
There we go. Yeah.
Okay.
No, it is not that. That we are complementary.
Am I proving my point by not knowing the word?
No.
Okay. No, I get what you're saying.
My feminine genius will not allow me to call yourself an idiot for not knowing how to pronounce a word because I see the whole person.
There you go. Yeah, so let's get into this. What is the feminine genius, and what are some of the things maybe that we're underappreciating?
Women have a tendency, and again, I'll use the word tendency quite a bit, but even when I don't, we can always think of examples outside of that, and these aren't like fixed characteristics. Mm-hmm. It's on a continuum, but generally speaking, women are created to be more attentive to the whole person and to see systems in how they impact people, whereas males are more, their brains are configured in a way to pay closer attention to process. They're more occupied with efficiency, whereas, the feminine genius is more likely to alter a process for the sake of the people involved in the process.
Can you give an example?
Sure. We were a diocesan group of us were planning a mass with children, the Pueris Cantoris, and two men had come up with a schedule of the day and presented it. Then we all came together with women and men to kind of assign roles within the day. The women took one look at the schedule and thought, this is not going to work. You've got to make some accommodations. They had children loading the bus at 6 a.m. and then not eating or drinking anything until noon.
Right.
Well, you've got 4th through seniors in high school. They're not going to be able to stand and sit and be attentive without anything to eat or drink because they're going to have eaten at like 5 in the morning to get to the buses.
Right.
They also had a 15-minute break for a restroom break with over 700 young people and about 7 bathroom stalls. So, the women stepped in and came up with a system to be able to allow the young people to go to the restroom when they needed to rather than try to fit them all in a 15-minute break.
Right.
Now, while we were meeting, the conversation about what the children were to wear came up. And we probably would have been there all day if the men wouldn't have just said, okay, black pants, white shirt. We can't control whether it's see-through or not. I mean, women were trying to think of all these implications, and the men had to just limit it and say, okay, just say this and figure out what, we can't come up with every foreseeable situation. So.
Interesting. Okay.
And in parenting, you can see this oftentimes. And because of what you alluded to at the beginning, we can tend to think that the masculine way of raising children is wrong. But in God's wisdom, he really gave us both. That you can't always alter a process for the sake of the person in every situation. So having the dad there to be able to step up to say, whoa, this is just the way it is, so you're going to have to adjust, rather than adjusting the world to that person. So women are more likely to, from very young ages, to labor and play for the sake of communion, whereas males tend to be more compartmentalized. They look at unique roles and they're not necessarily looking at how do I bring these people together.
Okay.
So those are just some generalizations. Women tend to be more sensitive and men tend to be more ambitious, but that's not to say that men are not sensitive and women are not ambitious.
Sure.
But the tendency is there. And I really think what we're seeing with a lot of the gender confusion is not opening up and accepting the range of femininity and masculinity within each individual person. That there's as many ways to express femininity as there are people in the world. And there are just as many ways to express masculine characteristics as there are people in the world, because we do have both, made in the image and likeness of God. God has both attributes that are feminine and masculine. So, and what I really see right now is that our church needs to lead the way in embracing and championing, like really appreciating and putting into practice the inclusion of the feminine genius in all decisions. And I would be bold enough to say that unless we're planning or making decisions that only impact women, there should be an equal number of men and women on whatever committee or in whatever factor that is. Likewise, and the examples that I kind of came up with is rekindle the fire.
Yeah.
Men plan that for men.
Right.
Now, I'm sure that sometimes as they're talking to women in the community, in the church, and their wives and things, some of the feminine genius is imbued into that. And men have learned the feminine genius, especially if they're in marriages.
Sure.
So they can see more, they can think of those things. Likewise, I'm part of Kingdom Builders.
Yeah.
It's a core group of women who plan for women. But even the team that I'm on that plans date nights for married couples, it has couples on the core team, but when we plan a night, it's typically the women who come together to plan, but we all go home and run everything by our husbands because we don't want to emasculate it.
Yeah.
We don't want to overlook something that they could say, oh, men aren't going to want to do that.
Right.
Or I would feel like this if I were asked to do that. So we really try to make sure that we're bringing both attributes in, both like the fullness of what it means to be the human person into those decisions. And, you mentioned that I would probably talk about St. Catherine of Siena, and I will a little bit, but on my drive here this morning, I was really thinking about Mother Teresa. And her feminine genius was that when she encountered a person, she saw that person and their dignity in a way and was able to kind of put aside, worry about structures, worry about systems and things like that, and really just focus on that person's dignity. And I really think that that's what the world needs right now, not just for people laying in the slums of India, but of women going out wherever we are, in the world and attending to the person in front of us, using our feminine genius, slowing down, recognizing and affirming the dignity of the person in front of us, because we have a lot of wounded people. We're all wounded. We're basically all wounded. Many people don't know what to do with that woundedness. They don't know Jesus, the divine healer. Oftentimes, they haven't really been affirmed in their dignity just by who they are. So oftentimes they're judged by what they've accomplished or not accomplished. And if women could go out and just let people know that it isn't what they've accomplished, what they've done, and kind of turn their shame into something useful, like take away their shame and help them to love themselves and recognize their value and unique contribution to the world.
Yeah. So looking at this as a church and as a community, I think we can see different places that there is the diversity, and maybe some places that we're lacking the diversity in people that are doing the planning and things like that. I think some of our parish staffs might look more one way than another. A lot of our schools tend to be more female. So what are some of the places that you see lacking the feminine genius?
Well, from a church standpoint, we would start with the Vatican. I haven't done a lot of research on this, but we had Adam DeVille on not long ago talking about the structures and what, like the canon law that has bishops only being appointed by other priests and bishops and the Pope making that ultimate decision, that I think we need to have the feminine genius imbued into the process of all aspects of kind of the hierarchy. And I completely, let me just say this up front, I completely 100% believe in the all-male priesthood. So I'm not advocating for that whatsoever. Jesus was male through and through, and he chose men as the priest to be in persona Christi. So I'm not advocating for that whatsoever, but women should be included in everything else beyond ordination. And actually, the more women are imbued into all other aspects and made equal partners in decision-making, I think the clergy can better fulfill their role, their unique role in the sacramental life of the church, because we'll have a healthier, more whole church.
Yeah. Do you think we need more? We always talk about how stressed our priests are and overwhelmed they are. Should there be more delegating and empowering the laity,
I think so.
including women, to do some of these things that aren't sacramental?
We are seeing that in some places, and I think it really is because it hasn't been happening. We're going to learn by trial and error, but we should be bold and be courageous that unless we try new things, we're stagnating. So there are parishes where there is a woman and the priest as kind of co-administrators, really leading, making decisions together. And I think that there's a lot of wisdom to that.
Yeah.
I think oftentimes we set clergy up to be, and I think this happens across the United States in many dioceses, men will kind of bring women in to gain their feminine genius, but then ultimately the decision is made by males. I think that we need to be better about that. If we're in a room and it's not 50-50 and we're making major decisions for the whole church, it's going to lean one way. And it makes it very hard for, if you bring one woman into the process, it makes it very hard for her to have her voice amongst all the male perspectives. So really looking at that value as every bit as important and supporting that. When I was up at St. Pius a couple weeks ago giving part of this talk, somebody asked a very good question, well, do you think women want to work in the Vatican or work more in chanceries or be an administrator of a parish? We need to change our systems to make it so that women can do that while fulfilling their longing to be mothers and wives.
Sure. All right. Thanks, Cindy. So much we could unpack in here, but I appreciate it so much.